It's called advanced glycation end products. What are they? Well, a new study sheds a whole lot of light on that, and it turns out, spoiler alert, the fewer you have in your diet, probably you're going to lose some weight, you're going to get your diabetes under control, you may even get a little bit of help with your heart, but I'm not the expert on it. Dr. Hanna Kaliova is with us once again here on the exam room. Dr. Kaliova, good to see you again.
Thanks for having me, Chuck.
What in the world is an advanced glycation end product?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, Chuck. There are so many reasons why a plant-based diet is good for your health. It's low in saturated fat and cholesterol and rich in fiber, high in antioxidants. It's low in heme iron. And now we're talking about advanced glycation end products, which are molecules that cause inflammation and damage in your body. The less of advanced glycation end products you have in your body, the better. And we looked into the effect of a plant-based diet on advanced glycation end products and its association with body weight, body composition, and insulin sensitivity. What are the advanced glycation end products, or the AGEs as we call them? These are proteins in our body that have been changed through an extended exposure with sugar or fat. First, they form the early glycation end products. That happens fast, within a few days. And then if the exposure to sugar and fat in your bloodstream continues, then the proteins form the advanced glycation end products, or the AGEs. And we can measure them in your bloodstream. We can measure them in your skin. These compounds increase the oxidative stress. You've probably heard the term before. That means the oxidative damage that happens in our body. They also increase chronic inflammation, immune system imbalance, and tissue injury. And they are the molecules that are behind the development of cardiovascular disease and kidney disease and liver disease and metabolic disease such as diabetes and cancer and neurodegeneration such as Alzheimer's disease, immune problems. In other words, you don't want these in your body. So the lower their level in your body, the better. Now, how do we get the AGEs in our body? Some of them are being formed during metabolism. As we eat food, they are being formed and released into our bloodstream. But some of them are being consumed in the diet. The foods that are particularly high in AGEs are the processed meats and cheese, but they're also contained in processed grains. And for example, chocolate, the sugar sweetened beverages and sugary foods. So in other words, we consume them in our diet, and you've probably heard that when you grill meat, the AGEs are being formed, especially when the food gets like dark brown and almost black. And the consumption of dietary AGEs has been shown to increase body weight, also visceral fat, and insulin resistance, independent of caloric intake. A lot of attention has been directed toward cooking methods. So when you, for example, microwave chicken, the amount of AGEs will double, but when you grill chicken, then the AGEs will go up 6 times. Well, That's true for meat, but what about other foods? What about plant foods? It turns out that, for example, boiled potatoes or apples are much, much lower in AGEs compared with chicken and with other meats. So that led us to ask the question, what if we put people on a vegan diet? What will happen to their AGEs? So that's exactly what we did. We had 240 overweight people who were randomly assigned to follow either a low-fat vegan diet that consisted of fruits and vegetables and whole grains and legumes, or to stay on their usual diet for 16 weeks. Now, we were tracking their body weight, their body composition using a DEXA scan. We were tracking their insulin resistance, and they gave us detailed diet records at the beginning and at the end of the study. And based on that, we ran all the foods from the database, and we looked up how many AGEs they were consuming. Now, over the course of 16 weeks, people lost about 14 pounds on a vegan diet. That's about 1 pound a week. That's very consistent with our previous findings. About 2/3 of the weight loss was due to fat loss. They also lost a lot of visceral fat around the inner organs. That's the metabolically most dangerous fat. Also, insulin resistance was decreased, which is a good finding. Now, the dietary AGEs were reduced by 80% on the vegan diet, which is just mind-blowing. Now, where did all the reduction of the AGEs come from? 55% of the reduction came from meat. Obviously, on a vegan diet, you don't eat any meat. So the AGEs coming from meat were decreased by 55% of the AGE reduction came from the fact that people were not eating any meat. So that was the majority. Not eating any dairy was responsible for 26% decrease in the total AGEs. And what also helped is that the vegan diet was low fat. We minimized the consumption of oils. And also, obviously, on a vegan diet, you don't use any animal fats. And that was responsible for 15% of the AGEs reduction. We found significant correlations. One thing is to reduce the AGEs in the diet, but was it somehow associated with weight loss and the improvements in metabolism? And the answer is yes. The reduction in dietary AGEs was also associated with weight loss, improved body composition, that means lower fat mass, lower visceral fat, and increased insulin sensitivity, independent of caloric intake. Because some of you may be asking, is it because people were eating less calories on a plant-based diet? No, that was completely independent of caloric intake. So in summary, a plant-based diet reduced dietary AGEs significantly, and this was also associated with weight loss, improved body composition, and improved insulin sensitivity, independent of energy intake. So, are advanced glycation end products aging you? Don't let them.
The first question I have for you is, you were talking about how plant-based foods tend to have far fewer AGEs, and the examples that you cited there in your slides were boiled potatoes and an apple. But what about foods that are cooked in a drier way? Say, I really like roasted Brussels sprouts. So those are going to go in the oven. That's a dry heat, possibly even a higher heat. Are they likely to have more AGEs because they've been roasted, possibly even if you have a gas stove exposed to a little bit of flame, than say the boiled potatoes?
If you toast bread, or if you if you grill something in the oven, if you bake something in the oven, generally speaking, the dry heat will increase the amount of AGEs in your foods, regardless of the origin of the foods. But what you need to keep in mind is that all the plant foods are much lower in AGEs to start with. So let's say, a slice of bread would have 50 kilounits of AGEs per 100 grams. And by toasting the bread, you would increase the amount of AGEs to 75 or even 100. That would be still super low compared to the animal products. So is it better to boil the potatoes, for example, than bake them in terms of AGEs? Yes, absolutely. But at the same time, if you're sticking to a plant-based diet, then your diet will be automatically much lower in AGEs compared with someone who eats animal products.
For the people that were participating in the study, did you talk about cooking methods with them and suggest?
Not at all. Yeah, that's a good point. Not at all. The participants in the study were not instructed in any way on which cooking methods they should be using. So even without any instructions, their amount of AGEs went down by 80%.
How much meat were the participants eating prior to the study? Because verbatim now, you wrote that their consumption of animal-derived foods was significant. So are we talking about meat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Exactly. It's a standard American diet. So, of course, we're talking about daily consumption of meat. One finding that's really surprising for me personally, we know from the nutritional tables and the content of AGEs that processed meats are the highest in AGEs. And so I was looking at which foods and which meats contributed most to the reduction of AGEs. So I was expecting that the processed meat would be the biggest driver, but that was not the case. It was white meat that was the biggest contributor. So when people stopped eating meat, most people already know that processed meat and red meat, they're kind of, risky, and they increase your risk of colon cancer and so many other issues. So most people think that they're eating healthy when they eat the majority of meat in the form of white meat. But getting away from all meat, reduced the AGEs the most, and specifically the majority was coming from white meat because people were consuming white meat as healthy food.
It's not just that group. That's the common perception.
Right.
I think almost universally around the world that your poultry is probably going to be thought of as being healthy. When we've seen time and time again, it's not. That's just a misnomer. One of the other interesting things that I found in the study was there was a pretty big caloric drop for the vegan group versus the control group here, who did not make any changes to their diet. So we're talking about with the vegan group, it went from around 1,800 to a little over 1,300. The control group down just a hair, like maybe 1,800 to 1,650, somewhere in that ballpark. My question is, could the caloric drop explain some of this, or basically would the results have held steady if they were still eating 1,800 calories worth of low-fat, 100% plant-based foods? Would that AGE drop still exist?
That's an excellent question, and in fact, this is one of the strengths of a vegan diet. When people start eating a vegan diet, the fiber just fills them up, and they feel satiated. They don't need to eat more. And if you want to lose weight, this is a great advantage because you are satisfied with less calories. And as a result, you will start losing weight. But that's not the only mechanism behind weight loss on a plant-based diet. We also showed that a vegan diet increases metabolism. It increases the thermic effect of food, which is the amount of calories that are being released once we eat a meal in the form of heat. So wouldn't that be nice if we could just burn off the extra calories in the form of heat whenever we eat? And that's exactly what started happening in this particular study. So reducing the calories is just one part of the picture. Another one is increasing the metabolism, which is another mechanism behind weight loss in this particular study. And you asked an important question. Is the reduction in AGEs driven by the reduction in calories? And the answer is no. It's completely independent. It's based on the foods that you're eating, the types of foods. Also the associations with weight loss and improved body composition and improved insulin sensitivity. These associations remain significant after adjustment for caloric intake. So it's not about how many calories you're eating, it's about what kind of foods you're eating.
A couple more before I let you go. When I was going through and I was looking at, you guys did a really good job of breaking down or measuring the AGEs by food group. And what we saw was that there was actually a rise in the amount of AGEs in the vegan group's diet from legumes and whole grains. Is that simply because they weren't eating a lot of them before they started eating the low-fat vegan diet?
That's exactly right. And you just nailed it. Yeah, people were eating more AGEs from legumes, for example, because they were not eating many beans to start with. And yet, beans are not a significant source of AGEs compared with meat or dairy or added fats. So even with the increase of AGEs from legumes, their overall AGEs just plummeted over the course of 16 weeks.
And we also saw a rise in AGEs with the meat alternatives as they were categorized. So a lot of the plant-based meats that we see right now in stores, are they a little bit higher in AGEs than whole plant foods?
That's correct. Processed foods in general tend to be higher in AGEs compared with fresh produce. So the more minimally processed foods you consume, the better off you are in terms of AGEs. But at the same time, this is not a reason to exclude them completely from the diet, because still, even when including all the soy milk and all the roasted bread and all the roasted potatoes and all the baked goods, people are still reducing their total AGEs by 80%.
That's pretty significant. And were there any other changes to the diet? Was fasting included in any of this, or was it just eat the low-fat, plant-based diet and we'll see what happens?
It was the latter. It was just go vegan, keep the fat content low. The upper limit for fat intake was 30 grams per day. We instructed the participants to minimize the consumption of oils, to saute their onions and vegetables in vegetable broth or soy sauce or water instead of oil. And also minimize other fatty foods such as nuts and avocados. And obviously, most of the packaged foods are out because of the high fat content.
There you go. That's your new word for the day. Well, new phrase for the day. Advanced glycation end products, and you want to minimize them in your diet as well to live a longer and healthier life. Dr. Hanakaliova, thank you again. Brilliant research. Thanks for sharing it with us.
Thanks, Chuck.
Got it.